I'm Rick Garza. I'm the director of the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board. Well, the director, Steve Marks, actually invited me. This is the third time. I think a lot, given that we were only 2 years apart, given that, Oregon and Washington are neighbors, given that a lot of people have licenses in both states to produce, to process, or to retail. So a lot of collaboration with the Oregon Liquor Commission around cannabis regulations. And we talked a little bit in the panel we just did about the collaboration of all regulators. So we held the first meeting of the cannabis regulators almost 3 years ago, and there were only 4 states that had legalized adult use at the time: Alaska, Oregon, Washington, and Colorado. We just met in the winter in Baltimore, just outside of Baltimore, Maryland, 27 states, Canada, and 3 provinces, and some of the local jurisdictions from some of the large cities. So we have every 6 months we meet. One of the next meeting is going to be here in Portland. So Steve and his team are going to be hosting us, and it'll be an opportunity to kind of, again, talk about best practices, model regulation or laws. We break up into as many as 15 to 18 topics. Different states take facilitation or moderate those panels. We share a lot of information about difficulties and challenges that we're having. Really, a lot of it is that because we struggle under federal prohibition. I talked a little bit just now at the panel about, here we are talking about hemp and CBD and how we have a farm bill federally that was passed to allow legal hemp, yet there's a safe harbor banking bill that the industry needs and that we need as regulators to track the money. But we can't get the U.S. Senate to move that bill right now, and that's just the politics of D.C., but it's the irony of how is it okay a year ago to do a farm bill provision that allows hemp when hemp is cannabis, and cannabis is cannabis, whether it's CBD, whether it's THC. So I just think sometimes there's kind of ironies out there about how do you work with a federal government that says no to some cannabis, but yes to hemp. And we were just talking about, in my eyes, cannabis is cannabis, however it's used, whether it's THC, CBD, all the other cannabinoids that we're aware of. I see it as one plant, and we should regulate it as one. That's it. That's the opportunity to hear. And, whether we're in Oregon, whether we're in Colorado or Washington or any of the legal states, same issues come up. While our regulations and the initiatives or the referendums have passed or legislation are different to some point, it's interesting from a regulator's perspective, we all deal with the same issues. And so this is the opportunity for me, and we do this at home a lot in putting forums together to hear specifically from the industry what's working, what's not, what are the challenges, what can we identify as issues that we want to work together, both as the regulator and the regulated. So I think it's an opportunity, which is why it was good to open it up to questions, to hear from the industry itself what are concerns you have as we try to figure out how does hemp, CBD, and cannabis, when they're separated with respect to who's regulating. You got, here the Oregon Department of Ag, for us the Washington State Department of Ag, doing basically the hemp permitting, and yet you have this whole other license base that's for adult use cannabis and medical cannabis. And then you have the Department of Health involved when we talk about medical cannabis. So I think these kind of, I guess for me as a regulator, it's an opportunity to hear from licensees what's going on out there, what are the challenges, educate us, help inform us, because in essence we're the policymakers around what these regs look like.